Hey everybody, welcome back to another video with Lim Reviews. So in this video, we'll be checking out the Amazfit GTS that I have on my wrist right here. I'm sure you've seen the couple of videos that I did on this Amazfit GTS, as well as the Amazfit GTR that was launched a couple of months ago, but it's still pretty awesome. So without further ado, let's jump into the comparison right away. So on my left, this square-shaped little guy here is actually the GTS, and this is the GTR. So if you already know, the GTR has been launched like a couple of months ago, and this came out first before the GTS came out. So naturally, you would expect the GTS to come with a bit more upgrades. But let's just do the comparison real quick right now. So in terms of price, I got the GTS here in China for about 900 yuan, which is about 125 US dollars, and the GTR right now is actually on discount here in China, and it costs just 105 US dollars. So in terms of price wise, the GTR here is somewhat cheaper than the GTS. Moving on, let's talk about the design. So as we can see, we have two very different designs here. The GTS uses this really like Apple Watch kind of look here, and the materials used are really good actually. So let me just put the GTR down for a bit, and we can see here we have this I'm not sure if it's stainless steel or plastic. It feels really good right here. So the glass is also like a Gorilla Glass 3 if I'm not mistaken, and so far I've been using it for about a week now, definitely more than a week actually. And as you can see on my screen, I do not have any scratches. They still look perfectly fine. We also have the sensors at the back, so this is where it is actually similar to the GTR. So let me bring back the GTR right now, and here we have the round face, as you can see. So the designs are slightly different. On the left, we have something that looks very similar to what you see on typical smartwatches these days, but the GTR actually keeps it more classic in that sense that it looks like a proper watch. The back also has this same set of sensors, so yeah, they both look great in my opinion, but I would say that the GTR materials just feels a bit more premium than the GTS. So one thing you need to note here is that my GTR model is the 42mm model, and there is a bigger one, the 47mm one, but for this particular test I'll be using both these because the sizes are yeah, very similar to one another. Okay, another thing to note here is that both these watches actually use 20mm straps, so they are super easy to find online and they're actually very cheap. So the GTR actually came with this rubber band that is, to be honest, is really nice. Like the shape here is very grippy onto the watch, whereas the GTS actually came with a different set of bands. It actually came with these silicone bands right here, and it feels very smooth, but I would say that in terms of comfort wise, they're actually pretty similar, but this just comes with a slightly different design on the front and back. So like I said, they use 20mm straps, so you can of course go online and get these for like, I got mine for like 8 or 9 US dollars, and they're really easy to attach on to the watches. They all have these little locks right there and they work perfectly fine. Moving back to the watch, both these watches actually weigh the same. They're both approximately 25 grams. That means they're really light, and when you actually put them on your wrist, you don't actually feel like the watch is there. It is really light, guys. You don't really feel like it is like something heavy on your wrist. To some, I think that may be good, but some of you guys out there might actually prefer something more significant or like heavier on your wrist. For me, I think this is perfectly fine. Next, let's talk a bit about the displays we get here. Both these watches have amazing displays. On the left, the GTS actually comes with a slightly larger display at 1.65 inches, whereas the GTR on the right here comes with just a 1.2 inch display. So both these displays are AMOLED displays, and they are really clear, super bright, and they are very colorful as well. Both these watches are able to go really bright. You can actually change the brightness settings just by hitting this little button right here, and I usually have my brightness set to pretty much maximum because I just love seeing like those clear screens on my wrist, and trust me, this is what you will want to see as well. The screens are really good. So on the left, the GTS is actually although it is slightly bigger, the resolution is actually a bit more higher than the GTS as well. So that means that text and fonts on the GTS looks just that bit more crispier than the ones on the GTR. Anyways, one thing I need to note here is that the GTR actually came updated with an always on display function. So right now, as you can see, although the GTS is like just going off in terms of the display, the GTR is actually still having the always on display displayed right here. So if you notice that it's just the always on display, you can't really customize it, and it will only show the time, the day, and that's pretty much it that you got on the watch. So you can't really customize the always on display, but what it does gives you is this screen right there that you just saw, and it is very useful because sometimes you don't need to tilt your wrist to see the time. But one thing I found quite odd with the always on display is that it only works with the time. So you can only see your time and day here and not the kind of sports activities that you're doing. So say for example, you're doing some activities. Let me just show you guys right here really quickly. Say for example, you just went out and you go for a run, or you're just working out at the gym. Notice that the always on display will actually turn back off after the activity begins. So let me just press go right there. So take a look. After some time, the display will just go off. The always on display will not stay on. So I think in this case, it is rather odd because sometimes when you're working out, certain tasks that you're doing may not allow you to lift your wrist to show the display. But in this case, the always on display doesn't really help you out here as well. So it is solely only for showing you the time and not for anything else. So just for your information, in terms of battery life, we have 220 milliamp hours on the GTS right here, and 195 milliamp hours on the GTR. So if you do not turn on the always on display, technically you will get 12 days of battery life on the GTR, whereas on the GTS you'll get slightly more, which is 14 days. Alright, enough of those displays. In terms of the UI smoothness, I noticed that both these watches are actually equally smooth. Although some people have said that there has been a bit of a lag, to me this is it's not that lag, it's very smooth to me. It doesn't really affect me in my daily use. If you can see here, the menus are actually pretty quick, and you often only see the lag when you're in the home screen. So for example, when I go back to the home screen right here and you just swipe across, there is this slight stutter, but in my opinion, to be honest, after the latest update on the GTR, the UI is actually very smooth. And we can say the same for the GTS right here. They're both very smooth. So there's nothing much to complain about the UI smoothness over here. To me, these are perfectly fine. Moving on to the functions and what these devices track. So both these devices have the same set of trackers. They both track 12 activities like running. In fact, let me just show you guys real quick. So we can just go up here and go into sport. So once again, my watches are in Chinese because I bought this here in China, but they will be the same in English. I'm not able to change the language on the watch, so please bear with me for a moment right now. So on the watch here, you see that all these kind of activities, and yeah, they range from running outdoors, indoors, cycling, mountain climbing, and a whole lot more of activities. So 12 activities are what both these watches can track. So moving on, apart from that, both these watches can also track your heart rate and sleep. So one thing I noticed about the heart rate sensor is it is very accurate. I actually did a heart rate accuracy test on another video, and you can check that out. One thing I can say about the sleep tracking is that both these devices are also the same in such that they don't really track your sleep really well. I have a couple of times where I actually woke up in the middle of the night, but it didn't register those moments where I woke up. Instead, it just said that I had a great sleep. So sleep wise, take it for what you may, but heart rate wise, both these devices are very accurate. Alright, a few more questions that I've been getting on YouTube here. You guys have been asking a lot about the ability for both these watches to store songs or maybe even playback songs. So what I can tell you is the answer is no. We do not have any internal storage on both these watches. There are no speakers here, there are no mics here, so you can't store songs on both these watches, and you are not able to answer any calls on both these watches. What you are able to do is actually control the song playback through the music controls, and you can also reject or mute calls by just pressing on the buttons on these watches. So no music playback and no answering of calls. Alright, last but not least, the water resistance on both these watches are actually the same. They both go as deep as 50 meters. And yeah, the one more difference that the Amazfit GTS has from the GTR is that the watch face is actually customizable. So what do I mean by customizable? First off, you can go, let me just show you guys real quick. So if you go into the watch face, let me just long press it to get into the watch face. So let's say I go into this watch face right here. I can actually edit what I want to see on the screen by hitting this little button. And right now you see I have all these squares around the icons. So I can just tap that to change it to a different function. Right now it's showing the heart rate. I can tap it again to show the weather. I can also customize this thing at the top here to show something else. Let me just show maybe the chance of rain or the UVI, the levels. So a lot of these are actually customizable, and it is really awesome. You can have what you want to see exactly on the screen of your watch itself. You can't do that for the GTR, unfortunately, but this is one function that I appreciate a lot on the GTS. However, having said so, both these watches have a ton of watch faces available. So on the right here, as always, we have the round face. As you can see here, this is for the GTR, and for the GTS we also have quite a number of watch faces, so plenty of options for you guys to choose. And yeah, you won't get bored with your watch that quick. Alright guys, I think that's it for this video. This is a quick run through of the differences between the GTS and the GTR. If you ask me, I will go with the GTS because I prefer the slightly longer battery life, and I also appreciate the fact that the screen is slightly just that much bit more wider, and it gives me like extra one more line of text, which I think is really good. But if you're looking for something more classic, something that looks more like a watch, the GTR will definitely not fail you as well. Both these are great smartwatches, but the final decision is really up to you. Alright, if you have any more questions, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. If you like this video or you find this video useful or it has helped you out in some way, please don't forget to hit that like button, as it will help me out a lot. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye! Shh.